Karajan, we did work. We did do quite a bit of work on everything. He was very attentive to every sound, every vowel, every nuance.
So, Miss Perry, thank you very much for your time and that we meet online today.
Thank you for the invitation.
You had the pleasure to work with Karajan, with Mozart music.
Yes, several times. Yes.
What was the experience you have still in your mind with him?
The first meeting I had with Karajan was for Barbarina in the Marriage of Figaro, because Jean-Pierre Ponel, the stage director, was planning a film to do the film of Nozze di Figaro with Karl Böhm, but then it was to be done also in Salzburg. So through this connection, I was able to have an audition with Herbert von Karajan in Berlin. So I prepared my Barbarina aria and flew up to Berlin and walked into his studio. And the first thing he said was, "Frau Perry, Sie sind schön." Because I had a very nice dress on that I bought especially for the occasion. And so he opened up his score and said, "Okay, let's start with the first recitative." And everything fell for me because I had not learned the recitatives. I'd only learned this aria at this point. And so I just started reading it, from sight reading. And I thought, it's all lost. This will never happen. So he said, "Okay, listen, just learn these recitatives and come back in 2 weeks, and then I'll listen to the recitatives." So I set to work and I learned all these recitatives, backwards and forwards, upside down and everything. And I came back to Berlin and ready to sing. And he said, "All right, sing the aria." Now sing the aria. So I didn't hear one word of the recitatives. So, always surprising, always giving a spontaneous push, to be creative and to respond in the situation. But I did get the role of Barbarina, and I sang it in Salzburg 2 years. And after that, other things opened up with Mozart.
But you sang it with Herbert von Karajan and with Karl Böhm.
Yes, with Karl Böhm, I sang it in the film with Jean-Pierre Ponel, and then with Karajan.
Did you recognize a difference between them, two of them conducting Mozart, conducting this opera?
Well, my contact with Karl Böhm on this occasion was very, very short. I went to Vienna to record the aria with him. We didn't do any recitatives, only the music. And I went to the studio, I sang it once, he said, "Thank you." And I was very surprised because I said, "Is that all? I mean, don't we have to repeat it?" And he said, "No, ich fand das sehr schön." I found it very fine. I found it very nice, So it was about 1.5 minutes of work with him on it. So I mean, he's a great master of absolutely Karl Böhm. He's of a generation before Karajan, and so he has a lot of tradition and experience behind him.
But so was there a different approach between them to Mozart music? Or was it kind of the same?
Well, it was hard for me to say that because my only experience with this little aria, and so, and it was the same orchestra, it was the Vienna Philharmonic. So I must say that both were very, very, very great. And my experience with Karajan was more because I was actually in the production. And so I was able to listen from the side and listen to the rehearsals. But with Böhm, it was just this little vignette, this little moment that we had. So it's not easy to. We didn't have any personal rehearsals, for example, with Böhm. It was just get to the studio, sing, and that was it. You know? And the other time when I sang Blondchen, it was like a quick rehearsal. It wasn't really working out.
So
So
not the picky rehearsals we know
no,
from Karajan.
with Karajan we did work. We did do quite a bit of work on everything. He was very attentive to every sound, every vowel, every nuance. So I tuned into Karajan, and he tuned into me. So we had a very good flowing musical relationship.
But you sang Die Papagena in die Zauberflöte with him.
Oh, yes,
How did
yes.
the rehearsals go?
Well, um, they were fun actually. I he just he liked what I did. I'd had some experience singing Papagena, and so what I just played the role that I knew, and he told me to stand here or go there, and and so it was very easy. It's another thing that's very quick, you know. It's a very small part, so I can't really say we worked very hard on that.
But Papagena, I think it's more an acting role. So in the first parts.
Yes, yes. And I did, when we did the recording, I actually did the dialogues myself,
Oh, great.
of the Alte Frau.
But he was telling you how to act, or only how you sing,
Oh,
or
well,
you
yes,
do
and
the...
he loves to act. You know, he loved to act, so he loved to perform. So we, but he did more with Papageno than he did with Papagena.
Yeah,
He
of
was,
course.
yeah.
But you also sang so many great music with him. But I think also the C Moll Mess of Mozart.
Yes,
And how
this
was his approach to the sacred music of Mozart from Karajan?
was very, very deep, a very deep connection. For me, it was a big challenge for me because my voice was actually more the voice of the first soprano, but this role was already cast, but he liked our voices the way we sounded together. That was Barbara Hendricks and I. We both took part in the Parsifal that he did at the Osterfestspiele, and so we were six young singers that were the Blumenmädchen, and all of these young sopranos, up and coming sopranos. And he called me into his office after the rehearsal, and he asked me if I wanted to sing the second soprano of the C-Moll-Messe in the recording. And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing, you know. He liked the sound of Barbara Hendricks and my voice together. He liked to have two sopranos that would equal each other more or less in the duet, and not have one that just screams, not have a mezzo voice that just screams in the top notes. He wanted to have the top notes almost parallel, almost seamless.
Flying.
So, but I had a year's time to work on it. It wasn't exactly the repertoire because of the range. The range was lower than I was used to singing, and I had to work very hard to achieve that in this aria. But it came out well, and we did a lot of concerts with this and the recording. And well, his seriousness, his depth, his spirituality, all comes through for me in this music.
Did you had the chance to talk with him about this topic, about the approach to the sacred music in person?
No, no,
Or was it during the rehearsals?
he does everything through the music. I wasn't giving him an interview about Mozart. No, it was more an unspoken connection. I think most of the singers had this with him. We don't discuss much with him. we didn't. We communicated in another way through musical things. And he would, if there was something he didn't or he wanted to improve on, he would stop and say, "Don't push this so hard. Do it easy. Do it easily." So one thing that I'll never forget was the color his comments on the coloraturas of this Laudamus Te aria that I sang. And he said, "Don't push the tempo. Be a little bit lazy. Sei ein bisschen faul when you're singing the coloraturas." And that really made sense to me, because if you try to show off and be virtuoso and do everything as fast as possible, you lose the depth of the interpretation. And it's almost like being dragging it a little bit behind the tempo that you're feeling. And it's part of his philosophy, I think, of when he's in front of a singer, to help them to relax, to help them to connect into the energy of the tension, which comes as well, but to come out of a relaxed mind and body, so that the phrase so that the phrase isn't frantic or worried.
But where did you perform the C-moll Mass? Also in Salzburg?
We did it in Berlin, and we did it in the Osterfestspiele.
What do you think was the connection back to the Zauberflöte, Karajan and die Zauberflöte? But because I think he conducted it very often and performed it very often and recorded it as well. Was there a special connection?
Oh, there must have been, because he did it so many times.
Yes.
I think he did it, I don't know, every 5 years or so, or maybe a bit more. I don't know how many times he actually did it, but he would get a new group of singers. He'd get a crop of new singers, and he would get interested in them. And then I think the ideas would come to do this opera, that opera with them, or this concert, because he was always interested in bringing up the new voices and promoting them and developing them. He had an endless curiosity for the human voice.
But did Karajan help you with your career?
Well, just the fact that I was singing with him gave me a big push in my career. Yes, especially when I started singing the bigger roles in Salzburg. I sang, my first big role there was Nanetta in Falstaff, and that just opened a lot of doors for me. And then the Sophie in Rosenkavalier was another. All in all, I think I worked over 10 years with him from the start. So it was quite an important thing for my career to have had this experience with him, as well as a personal importance for me.
When you have to describe Karajan, what would you say?
Oh, an attractive man, and enormous energy, music in all of the cells of his body and all of his muscles, and the ability to communicate it into the very finest part of his fingertips. Creative mind, very curious, very open to the new things, new technologies and ideas. I never heard him speak of politics, but often of technical things. He's a big fan of. I was a big fan of recordings, of course. We all know that, and always having the latest things at hand for his own work. I think he kept a large part of himself apart from the general public. What regards his family or his meditation, his spirituality. From what I understand, he was following a course of yoga with a master, and also had discipline as far as his sports. He was walking and he was swimming and he was really taking care of his body as much as possible. But as far as I know, at least for me, singers could not get too close to him personally. He would he would show his appreciation, he would show his admiration, and he would correct in a way which was easy to follow. I found it very easy, very beautiful to do rehearsals with him.
So you learned also from him?
Yes, I did. I learned about the simplicity of singing, the simplicity of phrasing, and the importance of, as I said before, the relaxation of part of singing, not just the effort part, but the ease. That the beautiful sound is the prominent thing. That's one thing I don't think he would like today, the tendency to kind of over emotionalize, over express music, the musical phrases, as though it's not enough just to simply sing the phrase as it's written and let the voice speak and not try to add things. I think that's one of the things that's one of the things I try to give my students too, to let, I said simplicity, but that's the true thing, the truth of the phrase, the sound, the timbre. You don't have to make an accent to make an accent. You don't have to you can have a feeling of an accent inside, but it doesn't have to be a louder thing. This is something which I hold as one of my principles as well. I learned that from him.
Great. I have now a personal question for you. How your approach is to Mozart music? Do you have a special connection because you sang such great roles of Mozart music?
Oh my goodness, yes. I just got shivers thinking of this question, hearing this question. But when I was about 3 years old, I got a book called Mozart, the Wonder Child. And it was a children's book telling the story of Mozart. I have it still in my library. And with little pieces, little excerpts of his very first compositions when he was 4 or 5 years old, and things you could play on the piano. And so my parents were luckily very musical. My mother was a singer and a pianist, and my father also sang. And so we had music in our house all the time. And Mozart was kind of my first best friend, I think, because I felt a connection to him from a very, very early age. And so sometimes I felt like his music was really written for me. His music for the high coloratura was perfect for my voice. I could sing those high concert arias so easily, and I felt he was my partner. He was part of me, and I connected spiritually to him. I even restudying things now. I study things with my students again, and I get new insights quite often about why Mozart wrote something this way and not another way, or little jokes that are included in the musical way that I missed maybe the first time around or the second time around, and now I'm seeing them in a much different light. No, he's a subject for study for a lifetime.
Yeah, I noticed some accords, just some of them in the Zauberflöte, for example. They're so simple but so touching and so overwhelming when you just play them by your heart. That's amazing, yeah.
You probably know the 2 arias of Zerlina in Don Giovanni.
Yes.
Recently, no, not so recently, but a couple of years ago, I was studying these roles with one of my students, and suddenly I got a question. I said, why did Mozart write this minuet rhythm in the second aria? Because actually Zerlina is not of that social class at all. She would not be normally singing that. And I never asked myself that before. I just sang, I just sang it as a sweet young girl who's trying to comfort her husband. But the fact that it's a minuet and not a Bauerntanz, not a country dance like the first aria is, that of course it just fell, the veil fell from my eyes. Mozart wrote that because she was transformed by her contact with Don Giovanni. She developed in the second act, she developed into a higher status in her own mind because of the attention that Don Giovanni had given her. And with this, Mozart wrote a different style of music for her. And so this had never occurred to me before, because people, when they analyze Mozart, they analyze him from the key that it's written in, the fact that it's a dance or not, or that it's accompagnato. They analyze like that. But I never heard anybody say something like this. And so I started looking at the other arias. Did these singers also, did Donna Anna and Donna Elvira also have this development in the second act? And I think so. I think they both have had, through the contact with Don Giovanni, they have changed their personalities, or they've developed, let's say, because of Don Giovanni. But I don't think it's as clear as with the Zerlina.
That's an interesting point, yeah. I've never thought about it as either.
No, but this sort of gives me an insight into how Mozart uses various styles. It's sort of like a dog whistle, you know that expression? You give a clue that only a dog can hear. It's an idea that he chooses this particular style. And with that, he's giving a message.
Yes.
And it could be all throughout. I mean, all throughout Magic Flute. It's of course the Mason, the idea of the Mason connection, and all kinds of spiritual things happen there. What happens? It's a real adventure. What happens to Tamino and Pamina?
Also Papagena. It's very interesting, the role.
Yeah.
I think someone takes it maybe too easy, but it's very interesting to play, I guess.
Papageno doesn't develop. I don't think Don Ottavio develops either. I don't think Leporello develops. Leporello's music stays more or less the same, first act, second act.
So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your great ideas and interesting points. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.